This is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today I have a very special treat for you. I was at the Raw and Living Spirit Retreat up in Molalla, Oregon. That's right outside Portland, for a wonderful retreat they have every year. To learn more about the retreat, you can visit their website, rawandlivingspirit.org. And at the Raw and Living Spirit, I gave 3 presentations, and this is just one of them. This is my presentation where I explain to the audience how to make raw soups. So I don't just say, this is the recipe, here's the recipe sheet, and follow it. What I do is I teach the techniques to make a raw soup depending on what's in your fridge, what's in your garden available, or even what's on sale at your local supermarket or health food store, what produce is on sale. Because I want people to be sustainable on the raw foods diet and not have to worry and think about, oh, I need to eat dinner tonight, I need to get a recipe. No, you need to eat dinner. You need to see what you have in your fridge or what's grown in your garden. I'm sitting in front of my garden here. I got beautiful tree collards and basil, some peppers, all kinds of good stuff in the garden. And you know, there always isn't a recipe for all the things that I actually happen to have in season at the time in my garden. So I make recipes up on the fly. You know, I've been doing this long enough, since 1995, to be able to concoct and come up with my own recipes. And one of my goals is to share with the viewers, you viewers out there, to how to come up with your own recipes, because truly that's the real way to eat raw foods, to come up with your own recipes based on the produce you have, but also make things that are really healthy and also going to taste great. So without further ado, let's go to the video so you can see my techniques on how to make raw soups. I go through the techniques, and also I make 2 examples of the soups. So let's go to that clip. My name is John Kohler, and today I'll be doing a demonstration on making raw soups. So unlike most chefs that maybe stand up here and hand you out a handout with the soup recipes that they are going to make today, I want to choose to even take the concept of teaching raw foods one step further. And the first way I'm doing this is teaching how to make raw food soups, and not just make a soup following a recipe, because most chefs and most raw food instructors just teach you, this is what I make, this is how to do it, now here's the recipe and go do it. But what I want to do in my life, and with a lot of things I do, is not just teach how to do it, but teach the process I go through to do it. So in my case, making a raw soup, I'm going to teach you the overall guidelines and techniques. I guess the easy analogy I could give you, I guess most of you guys, actually all you guys are ladies in the audience, so when you guys, or you ladies, are young, you probably learned how to bake cookies, right? Everybody learned how to bake cookies when they were young? Almost everybody. And I mean, for cookies, it's pretty simple. What, there's some flour, eggs, maybe butter, and sugar. I mean, but you know, like, so if you want like chocolate chip cookies, you use all those plus chocolate chips. If you want peanut butter cookies, you pretty much use those plus peanut butter. But so once you kind of know how to bake cookies, you could just, oh, I'm going to add macadamia nuts, have macadamia nut cookies, or, you know, I'm going to have sugar cookies, so I'm going to sprinkle powdered sugar, I mean, whatever. Same thing with raw soups. Once you know the basics on like how it's constructed, then you could just be like, in my garden that's ripe that I have a lot to harvest right now are carrots, so now I'm going to use the carrots to make a soup. Maybe you haven't gone shopping because you just got back from a trip, and in your fridge you have some celery that's been sitting there. What can I do with my celery? Or, you know, maybe you go to a farmer's market and they have a super good deal on cucumbers that week, you know, because you don't grow your own food yet, and so you buy a ton of cucumbers or on sale at the store, or tomatoes. So I mean, what I'm trying to teach you are the concept that you can use each and every day, whether you're growing a garden or shopping for your food, or just have food left in your fridge, and to be able to utilize that food to make a raw soup. Because like Aviva had a talk, I don't know, for earlier talking about, you can make a crazy cracker out of anything. I'm going to show you how you guys can make a soup out of anything. In my opinion, I mean, no dissing on Aviva here, but in my opinion, the soups and fresh produce is always healthier than dehydrated foods for, I mean, one main reason. I mean, and we are 70 to 75% water. And if we don't eat things that are that water rich or more, then the foods dehydrate us. And there are many challenges and health and diseases in the body that can be caused just by not drinking enough water. So I encourage everybody that if you are eating dried foods, to definitely drink some extra water. But instead of doing that, the easier thing is just to eat fresh foods in the first place, so you don't have to drink as much water. As Dr. T said yesterday, he doesn't drink water. Now I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I like to drink a lot of water in the morning when I wake up because I'm breaking my fast of sleeping, and then usually right before I go to bed. And this way I'm staying hydrated, and then during the day I eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables to give me the water I need. Thank you for coming to my talk today, because I know he's up there and he probably has a lot of people up there because everybody wants to learn about, anti-aging and staying young, but guess what? You guys are he's gonna teach you all the theory of it, and I've kind of fell asleep in some of his classes, not because of his talking, plus I only had 2 hours of sleep the night before, but you're gonna learn how to do it, because guess what? Fresh foods, and especially leafy greens, some of these greens and foods that have high water content, and fruits and vegetables are by nature anti-aging. And especially the coconuts are another one of my favorite anti-aging foods. They have what's called plant cytokines, and those are like plant hormones that keep the coconut young so that it could actually drop off a tree, float across the ocean, and then land on another beach like a month or 2 later, and all the DNA is continuing to replicate as it's floating across the ocean. It'll land on another beach and then sprout a whole new palm tree and grow more coconuts. So a lot of people don't know that. Coconuts are one of my favorite foods, so I'm glad I'll be using those today. I usually just do a coconut demo, but we're doing a soup using some coconuts. So you can see, you might say, John, how are you going to make a soup? You don't have any water on the table. Well, I have this water here to soak some of the seaweed. And because my soup bases are made of food, not water. And even the soup base that I'm going to use, the coconut water, it's coconut water based, not just water. So I'd encourage you not to use water as your base of your soups. You could use it as a filler if you need to, but I would prefer you use, what we're going to do today is make some juice, and our juice is going to be the base of our soups. So I guess the really quick concepts of making a raw food soup is really easy. There's just a few things you need to remember. Number one, for soup, the most important ingredient is the liquid. So first you need to have some kind of liquid. How do you get that liquid? Well, there's a couple ways you can do it. In the case of coconuts, you could actually just use the liquid out of the coconuts. Nice and simple. Another way, you could use a juicer to separate the fiber from the juice that feeds you, and you could use the juice as your primary liquid. So in today's case, depending on how much time we have, we're going to use some carrots to make carrot juice. Use the carrot as our base. We could use some cucumbers as the base, and we could also use some celery juice as the base. All of those vegetables, or in the case of cucumbers, technically a fruit, are very water rich, and actually in the case of celery, the celery juice actually has a nice salty flavor. So I guess that could lead me into the next segment of the thing in a soup besides the liquid content. You need a kind of flavoring agent. Now once again, the juices of the liquids, because you are using real foods as liquids, they will contribute some flavor, but you may also need to add more flavoring agents to your soup to make it taste good and palatable. Many chefs in raw foods may just say, oh, add some Himalayan sea salt, that'll give it some flavor. But think about it, why do people add salt? If your food tasted good in the beginning, right, then you wouldn't need to add flavoring to enhance the flavor. It's commonly known that MSG, which is definitely not healthy for us in my opinion, contains excitotoxins. That's used as a flavor enhancer. But what is MSG? Monosodium glutamate, sodium. So salt is a flavor enhancer. And in my opinion, while we do need an adequate amount of salt, most people in raw foods use way too much salt, and it could cause excess bloating. And they say, oh, salt has the minerals in it, so you need to eat it for your minerals. And I would say that, most, even Himalayan salts, Celtic sea salts, contain a lot of sodium and like that much minerals. So really, that's a really weak argument. The better thing, in my opinion, to do for your minerals and to make your foods pop and taste good is to grow it yourself, because even organic growers don't use basically rock dust minerals or add trace minerals, all the trace minerals back in the soil. And when you grow foods in the trace minerals, they really taste, and you pick them fresh, they really taste much better than the stuff, even organic food, And I have a couple examples of that here. Today I didn't bring anything fresh from my garden since I travel, and my talk is a few days from the time I travel, but these are actually from last season. These are mixed peppers that I dehydrated at low temperature in my dehydrator. And these things, if you use dried or smoked peppers, that's what they taste like to me. These have such an intense, complex flavor that add a lot to the recipes. Now you could get dried peppers, but it's not going to be the same as if you grew and you dehydrated them yourself, because they're truly raw, and I know these are super high quality. Same thing with my sun-dried tomatoes or dehydrated tomatoes. These are mostly cherry tomatoes that I grew, cut in half, or my intern at the time cut in half, and we dehydrated. And these things are so intense with like flavor, and they add a lot to the food. So the goal is not to add salt, the goal is to actually eat high quality food that already has a lot of flavor, so you don't have to add. I mean, we all know that like pink tomatoes from the store, I mean, they have no flavor. If you get an heirloom, at least it has more flavor, but even imagine more flavor than a good heirloom tomato grown in the minerals. They get a lot sweeter and have like a depth of flavor that words cannot describe.
All right, now you're depressing me because I live on a third floor apartment and the only space I have is a very small balcony and I can't do a garden. So what do people like me do?
Well, so, I mean, you could do the best that you possibly can. So depending on where you live, I mean, even if you can't grow your own food, you could go to and support local farmers in your area and ask at farmers markets, and you want to encourage your farmers to use the rock dust minerals because most of them actually don't. They don't know about it. Remineralize.org is a really good website for them to go to educate themselves about the rock dust and the rock powders, and then support the farmers that do. You could go and volunteer and work on a farm and, you know, get to talk to the farmer and maybe encourage him to start growing with rock dust. Maybe say, hey, could we do a trial in this area and I'll manage it for you? Because usually farmers have a lot of extra space that they don't farm because they don't have the labor. And if you're volunteering, or get a community garden in your area, if you live in the Portland area, I'm sure they're pretty progressive. They have community gardens that you could actually get your own plot and grow some of your own food. You could grow in containers in a balcony. I would probably suggest you go to my website, growingyourgreens.com, and I guess let me hand out these cards here.
Oh, I have one of those.
So these are my cards that have my websites, and on Growing Your Greens, I teach about growing your own food at home. You could even grow your own sprouts at home, so that's always doable. And actually, if you grow your own sprouts, especially like sunflower greens, they're really intense in flavor, and you could grow those in rock dust and like some compost, in a windowsill or in your kitchen. Does everybody have one of my cards already? So yeah, overall you want to just do the best you can and get the flavor out of the foods. And besides just the flavor you're going to get when you add the minerals in, the main benefit of adding the trace minerals in is that we're going to get the trace minerals. And as of a 1936 or 30s Senate document, they said our soils are devoid of minerals. And in this Senate document, they basically stated that a lot of the health challenges could be because of the mineral deficiency. And we have two routes. We can either start enriching the soil and bring the minerals back in the soil and do it that way, or we could maybe try to go like a different way, like the drugs and all this kind of stuff. And guess which way America went? Because it's more profitable. So it's getting back to basics and using whole foods is my whole approach. So besides the liquid, we need a flavoring agent. You could use homegrown produce as flavoring agents. I have some herbs here. I have some cilantro, some mint, some parsley. Flavoring agents could also be, fresh peppers, and I want to touch on a second about fresh peppers. Many people, see jalapenos and they think they're supposed to be green. Green jalapenos are not ripe jalapenos. They should actually turn red when they're ripe. So I want to encourage you to always eat and pick, if you're growing it, your produce as ripe as possible, because unripe produce, especially the solanaceae, which includes the peppers, the tomatoes, and the eggplant, can have higher levels of naturally occurring toxins. My mom told me, John, I read an article that said, tomatoes are inflammatory and they can cause inflammation in your body. And I would agree, most tomatoes sold at the grocery store, they're not anywhere near ripe, and they'll have a higher levels of the solanines or the naturally occurring chemicals that are inflammatory, because in nature doesn't want us to eat unripe foods because the seeds aren't ready to be grown again. And nature wants us to eat the foods so that we eat the seeds and then they come out and they grow new plants somewhere. So I also have some green onion too as a flavor agent. Besides, you can use flavor agents besides fresh foods, which I would encourage you to use fresh foods. I'm not using any I have my own dried peppers today. But I would encourage you to use fresh foods as your flavor agents instead of dried spices. So instead of dried spices, one of the easy things you can grow at home, relatively easy, is like herbs in a windowsill. They don't take much care. They're fairly easy. So you could pick your own oregano, or your own mint from your windowsill and use those in your recipes instead of buying the dried herbs, in a jar that have hopefully not been irradiated. Yeah, that lasts forever. That's the other thing. We want to eat foods that expire and go bad. So besides the liquid, the flavor agents, we need something else. And I like to have texture in my soups. So I don't know what's my favorite. My favorite soup of all time, before I got into raw foods, was a Japanese udon soup. How many people have had Japanese udon soup? A couple people. So udon soup, it has like these noodles in there. It has all these like just textures in there, and it just tastes good. So some of the things we're going to use for textures today are we have some cut up carrots, thanks to Jordan. And what we're also going to do for texture is we're going to add some noodles to our soup. So I have a few ways of making that. You could use a device such as the spiral slicer, and that'll make noodles out of things like zucchini, English cucumbers, not regular cucumbers, even things like carrots and hard and firm vegetables. This will make long spaghetti or angel hair-like strands up to 4 or 6 feet long if you do them properly in here. We're not going to use this one. This is a little bit more intensive than what I want to use today, so I have an easier solution. And that's these guys. It's a 2-piece julienne peeler and slicer. One's a peeler, which is like your standard carrot peeler, which is pretty normal to peel things. And actually this, you could use your peeler as a texture because you'll just make long, flat kind of noodles. This one I like better. This one will make actually julienne slices. So this will be like the noodles, but they'll be only as long as like the carrot. And the carrots, actually, these carrots are pretty long. So it's going to make pretty long slices. So that's going to be a texture in our soup. The other texture we're going to use is another cool tool I have. And these are available at my booth. I did bring a few of them to offer. This is a coconut noodle maker or shredding tool. There's a shredder on the back side, but we're going to use this side. This side allows you to make noodles out of the young coconut meat. And so that's like a nice rubbery texture, much like one of those udon noodles, like the closest texture that you could get to in raw foods, in my opinion. So that's going to be really cool. We're going to get to do that. So texture is very important. And those are, and another thing we're going to use for texture, even if you don't have any special things like this, you can just take some charred leaves, and we're going to use the chiffonade technique for you chefs out there. I'm not a chef. But we're just going to roll these up and slice them really super thin with my ceramic knife to make nice little fine, like long strips. And that's going to go into the soup to add texture. Another thing to add texture and some flavor too at the same time, and we should probably do this now, is this guy right here. You probably can't read Korean here. But this is some Korean seaweed, but this is nothing really super special. This is just some wakame. And wakame, although each shred looks small, actually we'll do this right now in front of you. We're going to soak this, and you soak this, and it becomes like 5 times the amount. So let's do this right now real quick, because it does take some time. So generally I like to soak this and then drain it. So I'll need to actually also get a strainer from the back. So we'll put a little bit in here. So I just barely covered the bottom of that, like with hardly any, and we're just going to add some water in here. Add a lot of water and let it soak, and then we're just going to pour off the excess. So we'll just let that hang out while I'm continuing to talk. So that's another texture, and that'll have a nice like noodle-like texture. They also have another really good seaweed that I like to use. It's called sea spaghetti. And sea spaghetti actually is kind of like really like spaghetti. It's long strands. You need to soak it at least 24 hours for it to like soften up and be like spaghetti. It has a neutral flavor. It doesn't really taste like seaweed too much. I prefer that you would use that as a texture other than something that's really common nowadays in raw foods, which is called kelp noodles. How many people have had kelp noodles? A few people. Well, so the kelp noodles, based on my research, and I have a video on YouTube about this, they're in my opinion, they're not a whole food, and in my opinion, they're not a raw food, and they're not really healthy for us. So I would encourage you to, if you are trying to eat raw, not to eat those. Now, if you are still eating cooked stuff, and it might be a better alternative than, I don't know, pasta or something, but I really want you to eat more like real foods, foods that you could identify and look at. Like nowhere in nature does those kelp noodles. You can't just find those in nature. I mean, you could find the wakame in nature, you could find the sea spaghetti because it's really dried seaweed, but they take the seaweed, they process it, they make some white crystalline powder, they combine it back with some liquid, they extrude it out of a machine, and then it makes noodles that look all identical, and they have no flavor, and some people even say they taste like plastic. Besides that aspect and the texture of the food, I think that's all my textures on the table today. We need one last important criteria or thing for our soup, and that's actually really, other flavor agents. Talking about flavor agents, going back a little bit because I think I missed this one. One of the flavor agents I like to use, while I don't like to use straight up salt because it actually is mostly salt and maybe a little bit of minerals, I like to use small amounts of fermented foods. So I would use maybe like a scoopful of kimchi or a scoopful of sauerkraut as a flavor agent to give it a little bit of salty flavor, but without directly adding salt. And you can make sauerkraut without using salt, and I have a video on that also. But another flavor agent that I like to use a lot that's a fermented food is something like the miso. So the miso, while it does have a small level of salt, it also is a fermented food, and I'm not going to put a whole lot in here, just like a little teaspoonful will add a little bit of flavor, and especially if you're missing like the miso soup aspect. So we're actually going to use the miso to make like a miso-like soup here in a second. Oh, and so besides the flavor agents and the textures, we need one last thing that's very critical, and that's a fat source. So to make it taste good, I mean, you could do it low or non-fat and not use a fat source. But for a fat source, you could use things like hemp seeds, sunflower seeds, or some nuts. So I have today some walnuts, and I need to get a volunteer to shell some of these walnuts. And I want to encourage everybody, when they purchase their nuts, to buy your nuts fresh and in shell. Fresh and in shell nuts have number one, they're more of a whole food, they're in their natural wrapper, and when they're in their natural wrapper, they're more protected. Some things, especially like hemp seeds that have been de-hulled, it's not legal to have unhulled hemp seeds in the U.S., unfortunately. They can go rancid, as Dr. T had mentioned, so you want to buy them and use them, not store them too long. But foods that are in their natural shell have a protection from the elements, because I mean, this nut is supposed to drop on the ground, stay in the ground, and then sprout into a whole new tree. And so nature has given its protection. But when we remove the protection to make it easy for us to eat, then that's when it can start to oxidize and spoil and go bad. The other nut I have today actually are cashews, and I want to explicitly state that I'm not a fan of cashews in nature, and I like to look to nature for many of my answers, although I don't entirely agree with everything in nature, because we're also in a modern age that's different than living 1,000 years ago when things were more natural. Cashews, in my opinion, would not be eaten raw by people without some major processing. In addition, when I eat the cashews, I don't feel well after that. And that's another point that I want to make, is that no matter what anybody here at this retreat says, one of the most important things, you should take everybody's opinion into consideration and see what rings true for yourself. See how you feel. Maybe you eat the cashews and you feel great. I mean, I don't feel good, and based on going out and seeing cashew trees in Costa Rica, and I see all the cashew nuts, which are the appendages on the top of the fruits, which you can eat the fruit, it's not too good, but all the nuts would drop on the ground, and even all the monkeys and all the bugs and everything in Costa Rica would not eat the appendages. That's because outside this appendage, it's in like a little wrapper shell thing, and it's actually, if you try to open it up with your fingers, it's caustic and it'll burn your fingers. So nature doesn't really want us to eat these, because if we ate all the cashew nuts that ever dropped on the ground, there would be no more cashew trees. And nature puts these toxins either in small amounts, which we could handle, even in kales and things like that, there's small amounts of toxins which are actually can be beneficial for us, but that's why we also want to rotate the foods we're eating. We don't eat kale every night for dinner. We want to eat kale, bok choy next night, some parsley the next night, romaine lettuce, then some dandelion greens, some chicory greens, some mallow leaves. I mean, we want to get the widest spectrum of nutrition as we can. So yeah, in nature, but this is what they had here at the retreat for me. They had some cashews, because I didn't specifically say what I'd use. Instead of cashews, if you want a nice creamy texture, my favorite nut is macadamia nuts. So raw macadamia nuts, they are healthy, and although they have a really hard shell, we would be able to get into them if we were in nature with some rocks, hit them together to crack them open. Oh, okay, so do I have a volunteer to help me shell some of these nuts over on this side of the table into a bowl maybe? Thank you, Jordan. So let's see, so now, once you guys know the technique, so we have the liquid component, the texture component, the flavor component, and the fat component, right? So 4 things you need to make a soup, and I have endless combinations of those on my table today. So I think the first thing I'm gonna make, oh, check this out while we're just while I was talking, look at that. I mean, that's at least halfway full already, and I literally just put a few at the bottom. And these are nice big noodles. They remind me of Chow Fun noodles when I was a kid, because they're kind of like squishy and rubbery. They don't really have too much of a fishy flavor, because I don't really like fishy flavors too much. But the first soup we're going to make, I think we're going to make a nice, easy miso soup. Oh man, the other thing I forgot to mention, this is very important. For my fat component, instead of a nut, you could also use the coconuts. So you could use like the coconut meat in these coconuts, or I would prefer to use the mature coconut out of mature coconuts. This happens to be coconut that I got out of a mature coconut, and I'd rather use it fresh, but I asked it for a mature coconut. They got me the young ones, because that's what I normally use here. But you could use this mature meat fresh, or you could dry it and then use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a coconut milk base for our soup using this. Now, the coconut shreds that you buy in the store are a lot wider than this, and when I've eaten them before, I get a negative reaction, like I break out. And so I think they're maybe not as good. Plus, if you buy them, they'll like sit on your shelf, or they sit in the store thing, and they seem to like last forever. When I make this, I get it out of my coconut dehydrated. If this sits for more than between 3 to 6 months, I'll open a bag up and it'll just go bad. It'll go rancid. And once again, we want to eat foods that go bad, so you've got to kind of wonder about those. Now, if that's all you can get, that's great, but I would encourage you to get the fresh, old, mature coconuts and scoop the meat out of those. And I have tools like the end of this will help you scoop the meat out. You can put it through the machine to grind it up to get it into this state and then dehydrate it at low temperatures. So you can be assured you're having the highest quality food. So we're going to make a coconut milk first. That's one of our bases. So we're not going to use water, we're going to use the coconut. So I'm going to move my cutting board out of the way here. Another question I get a lot is, hey John, how do you open one of these coconuts? Do you bang it against the ground? Take a cleaver and hack it up. And I like to do that just very simply with a standard chef's knife. This happens to be a little bit longer than I would like. I'd probably like a nice 8-inch chef's knife. But this is what we have here, so this is what I'm going to use. So it's very simple. You just take the coconut, place it on its side, and you're just going to cut off the husk. Now, this could be sharper. So once you cut off the husk here, we're just going to rotate as we cut off the husk. And if you cut off the husk on the top of the coconut as it's sitting, you're actually looking at the bottom of the coconut. Because on the tree, the coconut is actually sitting like this. It's in a big, large football type husk. And on the bottom of the coconut, you'll always see 3 veins. And you're going to go between the vein that has like the largest amount of space, which is this one. And you're just going to simply take your knife at this angle and then hold it. And then I like to bring my other hand all the way up to the edge so that when I tap on it, this is like all lined up and even. Just tap your hand in. Really easy. The knife should stay. Then what you're going to do is just lower this down to being parallel with the table, and then you're riding a motorcycle, rock, and you can see I just popped the top.
Oh my God.
So it's just super easy and super safe, and of all the times I've opened coconuts and seen how other people do it, they take it and crack, and whack, and man, it's just so dangerous, but this is just so simple and so non-violent. So this is my favorite way to do it.
John, there were 4 things: texture, fat.
So first there's liquid. That's the most important. We're mostly water. We want to eat things mostly water. The next thing is the food texture. So you could cut up cilantro and that could be a texture, or the noodles, or the seaweed. Then we have the flavor agents. So some kind of flavor, like we're going to use some hot peppers and the miso, other herbs and spices could be used for that also. And then finally, the fat component, right?
Thank
you. 4 things. So now we're going to take this coconut here and put it into our blender. So I guess I don't have to make a large batch of this since there's not too many people here today, so that's good. Let's see. So now we take our coconut, and let's see. My standard ratio when I'm making coconut milk is 32 ounces of the liquid to 1 whole brown mature coconut meat. And since this is dehydrated, I'm just going to have to guess how much 1 is. But in the coconut meat, this just makes a standard coconut milk. It's nice, rich, and fatty from the coconut. And coconut does not contain any cholesterol. It does contain saturated fat, which is a non-essential fat, but it can be good for energy, and you don't want to eat too much saturated fat, but a little bit's all right. Oh, and while I'm talking about that, I want to encourage everybody to eat, not too much fat. One of the challenges and problems I see with people that get into raw foods is they weigh way too much fatty foods, and a lot of the recipes from chefs and a lot of raw food chefs, everything's nut-based or seed-based, and in my opinion, that's not quite optimal. Whether it's a raw fat, a nut fat, flesh fat, we don't want to eat too much fat. We know that. So we want to eat, in my opinion, between 10 to 25% maximum percentage of calories from fat. Like 25 is max, maybe even 20. So in my day, like my fat source, because even some of the vegetables have small amounts of fat. I mean, lettuce, if you get fresh lettuce, you can actually taste the butteriness, and that's the fat in the lettuce. So my goal every day is to eat no more than 1 handful, but I like to be lenient in my life. I'll give myself 2 handfuls of nuts or seeds a day, and once again, rotate those, whether they're a coconut nut, because it's a nut, or some other kind of nut or seed. We want to try to get different things, including the flax, the chia, and the hemp. So let's see, we're going to start this off slow and then crank it to high. All right, so that's blended up pretty good. Now the next thing is we're going to put this through a nut milk bag, or if I had my Omega Vert juicer, I'd just run it through that, because then I wouldn't have to get my hands dirty. But we're going to put it through a nut milk bag and just make the standard coconut milk. It's very simple, very easy.
So you can't make coconut milk by using the young, fresh coconut meat and mixing it with the water?
Okay, so as the coconut matures, the meat gets more fatty. So if I was going to use the coconut as the fat source, like a young coconut, basically I would just take the young meat and the young water, blend that up together, and skip this step. Because the meat in there is so much more tender, you can just blend it up by itself without doing this step. With this, if you try to eat that, it's really gritty, and that might add a flavor component in your soup if you desire that. I personally don't like it too gritty. So this running it through the nut milk bag will give us, a nice texture. And then it'll leave us all the fiber, and that's a nice rich milk. So once again, we are using the young coconut water with the mature coconut meat that has been dried. And it'd be best to use the fresh, mature coconut meat. Or you could use the mature coconut meat and the mature, fresh coconut water out of that nut. Oftentimes in soups, the other thing I try to do is, one of my goals is always to minimize the amount of ingredients that I'm eating. They do have a thing called food combining, and no, I don't know explicitly all the food combining rules. It's too complicated to remember, but if you remember this, you'll food combine by default, which is what I do. Try to include the fewest amount of ingredients in every recipe that you eat and still have it taste good. And as long as you can do that, you're probably going to be following food combining more closely because you're not adding a million ingredients. So that's exactly what I do. I just eat really simple. Many of my meals are just like fresh fruit, like one type of fruit. I could just have a half a flat of berries for breakfast, or one whole cantaloupe for breakfast. All right, so I think we've milked this to the max. So here's the milk right here that we just made, nice fresh coconut milk. So this is the base of our soup. This is the liquid. Once again, we could juice, which if we have time for, we'll probably make one more soup, maybe using carrots. But the next thing we want to do to our base is we're going to add some of the flavor agents in there. We're going to use our blender to do that. So I'm going to rinse this out really quick. All right, so we can put our coconut milk in our carafe because we're going to reblend it with our flavoring agents. So I think our flavoring agents in this soup are going to be some miso, chickpea miso, let's see here, and a little bit of some habanero pepper. Many people like things hot and spicy. One, so I'll put a small piece of habanero pepper because a little bit truly goes a long way. And the hardest part of the pepper, if you didn't know that, is the seeds, number one, and these white veins that carry the seeds. Those are the hottest. If you want the non-hottest, just a small scoop of the part that's not those parts. So we just got a small piece of habanero. We'll see, that might not even make it too hot. and we'll just do a small piece of the miso here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to blend it up and get it to mix. I think maybe for some fun we'll add some more peppers, some of my sun-dried peppers that give it more intense flavor. And once again, I'm going to take some pieces that don't have any of the seeds on there.
Is it hard on the Vitamix to hold the top down?
So like I hold the top down on the Vitamix because it's just kind of a habit from it flying off before. But they have a new locking system on many Vitamixes that doesn't really blow the top off unless you like super overfill it.
I was just wondering if it was hard on it seemed like it would be hard on the motor if you're pushing down on the.
Oh, no, that has no effect on the motor whatsoever because the motor's already sitting down on the thing it rotates on, and that's not going to do anything to the motor. Yeah, mainly I do that out of habit because I've had Blendtex, the competing brand to the Vitamix, with the top blow off and stuff go everywhere. That's definitely not a fun thing. Yeah, I mean, it's just habit. All right, so here's our soup. We got the 3 components in here, right? We got our liquid, we got our fat components, and we have our flavor agents. Actually, some nice color there. Peppers add a little bit of texture also. But we're going to add some more texture. So let's see here. Why don't we put some cilantro in there? So we're going to take some cilantro and I'm just going to slice it up as fine as I can get it. You could put whole leaves or whole sprigs or whatever you like. I like different textures in my soups that I make. How many people like cilantro? I love cilantro. Some people hate cilantro. Like, oh, it tastes so soapy. But it's so good for you. I love it. So the next thing we're going to do to add something else to the soup without really adding an ingredient, because the base is coconut, we're going to add coconut noodles. So coconut noodles, you're not even adding ingredients, just the same food in a different shape or form. So I'd encourage you to use the same food in different ways. So like you could blend bell peppers and also chop them up into your soup. So that still only counts as one ingredient in my book, because it is one thing, you're just using it in a different way. So we're going to use this tool in the back here. It has these little things. And this can get a little bit difficult to use. You got to have the right technique. So we're going to kind of go into the coconut. Let's see, we can do it right here. And then once you go in, you got to stay underneath the coconut and then just bring this around. Let's see how successful and how long I can make them today.
If you open them and they're purple, you throw them away.
In general, yes.
What about pink?
Yeah, pink and purple are not good colors
In coconut.
in coconuts.
Wow.
So here, this is like, I think, one noodle.
Cool.
So we're going to add some of these noodles into in the soup here. So yeah, it can be
Wow, fantastic.
yeah. I make it look easy. This does take definitely some technique, and as you can see, I kind of opened up this larger so I can fit the tool in there easier. Generally, I like to use this tool with the white coconuts that are from Mexico that are on the younger side. This won't really work on mature coconuts because they're not as soft and jelly. So you just take this tool and say this is the coconut. This is about the perfect thickness to do it. You just get the tool and put it right in there, and you can see as it goes through, it just cuts the noodles out. And you can see all the noodles that's just now appearing on the end of this. These are all little noodle strands.
Does that make noodles on other vegetables as well?
Does this work on other vegetables? I mean, they say it'll work on some vegetables, but it's not really going to work too well. Depending if the vegetable stays together, a lot of vegetables, if you cut it in this way,
Right.
what'll happen is it'll just kind of not stay together and not be a long noodle. I mean, maybe with carrots, but with carrots, the better tool is this, and I'm a big fan of Kitchen Gadgets. if you haven't already noticed. And there's always the right tool for the right task. I mean, that's something my grandfather said, not necessarily about kitchen tools, but about tools in general. So always use the right tool for the right task. You're just going to get better results. And this is like the only tool that'll kind of do this task. And once you do that, you can see I cut out that other half. The other half I could just actually cut off, and I'll even have more noodles. Right in here. So I took this off. We could just go like this. And then you want to do a continuous line. So like we're underneath here. Now we're just going to keep rotating this around this whole piece. And this is going to be the length of the noodle as long as you can run it. And keep it underneath.
And the brown and the white coconuts are not as,
They're not as sweet. So the brown and white coconuts, they're closer, so they're more sustainable in my opinion because they're from Mexico versus being from Thailand. And they also not quite as sweet. So the Thai coconuts, in my opinion, are kind of like if you always ate Fuji apples. Fuji apples are like some of the sweetest apples, but there's all kinds of apples, like pink pearl apples that actually aren't quite as sweet. And nothing wrong with sweet coconuts. Here's another noodle. Nothing wrong with sweet coconuts, but just due to the transportation cost, and I mean, do the chemicals that they're soaked in go through? I mean, some people say yes, some people say no. One guy that I know got tested and said it doesn't. And actually, a couple years ago at this event, actually, I took one of these coconuts and soaked it in grape juice for like 24 hours to see how far the grape juice would penetrate, you know, through the husk. And it didn't get into the shell. I mean, it went like that far. Or no, like that far. So like it barely even got in there. But nonetheless, and also at this time of year, especially, they get quite expensive because the seasons I think were reversed, and like every summer the price of the Thai coconuts go up.
yeah.
And even the Mexican ones went up a little bit, but not quite as much as the Thai coconuts.
How do you source the Mexican coconut?
So if you go, I'm in California, so I could go to a Mexican market or a good Asian market that carries a wide variety of foods and a good produce department. They generally have them. In my area, I also go to the wholesale produce terminal. So I actually buy produce where the stores buy their produce to resell. So I just get it where they would get it. And I have a video on YouTube about that explaining my process. They may have a produce terminal in Portland, I don't know, because I don't live up here.
I've seen about Rayleigh's also.
They don't, if you have Rayleigh's up here. But I would just check other Asian and ethnic markets is the main thing. So I think we got enough noodles in there. I could screw this for longer. So you can see here, there's just all these little tracks in there. It looks like bugs or something, and kind of weevil through there.
What do you do with all the coconut meat if you make it with water? What do you do with the rest of the coconut meat if you drink water? Do you like give it away?
So, I see. So yeah, what do I do with the rest of the coconut? So the rest of the coconut meat gets turned into this, so that somebody like Jordan at an event could have it. Put it in a little bowl so everybody could get a little taste and see what it tastes like before you take the rest home.
Thank you.
Yes. So I have so much of that stuff at home coming to my ears. What I'll do is actually I'll take it and then I'll run it through a juicer and I'll actually make my own coconut oil and coconut butter. So with that you can make coconut oil if you put it through the juicer and you literally juice those shreds.
Will the Samson do that?
I blew up the Samson trying to do that, so I would recommend only the Omega this time. You probably could do the Samson if you did it right. And then if you put the Samson will do this next one, you can put it through with a blank plate. And then you'll just grind it up, and then you put it back through a few times. You'll make your own coconut butter. So how many people have bought like Artisana coconut butter for like, I don't know, what, $10 a jar or something? You can just take all the coconut meat that you didn't use and then just feed that through. And this stuff tastes like at least 2 times, if not 5 times better than the Artisana stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was one coconut soup. None of this was actually planned about what I was going to make. I just decided I'm going to come to the event and see what produce they have and then make something. So here's the first one. I think I probably, I'll have another half hour. I could probably maybe get 1, maybe 2 more recipes if I'm lucky. We'll be sure to use, now check this out now. Okay, so remember that was like 3/4 of the way full. Look at that. That's like almost filled up the whole thing. Did you guys think it was going to fill up the whole thing?
Yeah.
This is another great flavor texture because it's nice and spongy. When I try to make soups, I really try to get something that makes me feel like I'm eating something like noodly. Because once again, I like that udon soup. So I guess the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use some carrots as a base. Oh, the other fat source you can use that I didn't mention earlier, avocados, is another one you can blend up in there. with the liquid, or you could actually add that back in as a texture and not actually even have the fat blended up into it. We could add whole nuts into the soup, but I don't like to do that. I would rather add whole avocado chunks. That would be a little more fun. The other flavor or another fat source you could use that I like to use are olives. So as you see and as you heard, I didn't actually mention that I used olive oils or coconut oils because in my belief, you know, I don't believe that we should be eating extracted oils. And now, while extracted oils, in my belief, can be used as like a medicine, like coconut oil has, it's high in boric acid, medium chain fatty acids that they have shown that it can help with, you know, killing bacteria and viruses and all this stuff. And if you're going to use it as a medicine, I think it's cool. But just eating it on an everyday basis, I think we can definitely get too much fat in our diet, especially because most people don't know that 1 tablespoon of oil contains around 100 calories. And that's a lot of calories for just 1 tablespoon where, you know, this whole head of celery, if you ate this whole head, it doesn't have 100 calories in it probably. I mean, a whole head of lettuce is not even 100 calories. So it really starts to add up your calories fast, and then you could, you know, if you eat too many calories, obviously whether they're raw calories or not, you're gonna, you know, keep and maintain your weight. And if you want to maybe gain weight, you might want to bone up on some oils. So in the case of olive oil, I would rather prefer you use olives, you know, and blend up your olives, the whole olives, because they contain the fat, the plant sterols, the fiber, and everything in there that are good for us.
John, are you concerned about the source of your seaweed?
Absolutely. So I am concerned about the source of my seaweed, especially with the stuff going on in Japan now, as a lot of the seaweeds are from Asia. So I think right after that happened, I went out and bought like a lot of seaweeds from Asia, knowing that, okay, this happened well before the date of the situation over there, so this seaweed's safe, but I don't know, the stuff coming over now may not be. So I would encourage people to always buy local and source as close as you can. I know probably here in this area, they probably harvest some seaweeds. And I know in my area, in Northern California, there's a seaweed harvester. They also harvest my dulse from actually like Maine and up in Canada, over in that area. That's where I get the dulse, which I really like. Yeah, look at those noodles in there, isn't it amazing?
It's nice.
All right, so next I'm going to juice these carrots up, and that's going to be our next liquid for our juice. And today I'll be using the Samson juicer, and that's a juicer I happen to bring today. And there are many different kinds of juicers, and if you want to learn more about juicers, visit my website, discountjuicers.com. I have over 200 videos on that website explaining all the different kinds of juicers if you don't already own one. So each type of juicer, juices more effectively certain produce items. So this juicer is not necessarily known for juicing carrots super well. The centrifugal ejection juicers juice carrots better in my opinion because it makes a juice with less fiber in it. These style juicers work best for juices of the leafy greens and things like celery.
Is there a juicer that juices greens and, it seems like you need 2 different juicers.
I mean, this will juice greens and carrots and everything, but you can see like some of the carrot pulp is running through the screen, so it's not like optimal. I mean, it depends. Everybody has a different need, and I would say, the best juicer for you is a juicer that's going to best meet your needs. Like if you're going to go out hiking, you're not going to wear ballet slippers, because those shoes are meant for ballet, right? You want to get the juicer that's going to juice best what you want to juice the most.
How about wheatgrass? I don't hear anybody here talk about wheatgrass very much. Do you use
Sure.
wheatgrass very much and stuff?
Do I juice wheatgrass or use it, or?
Yeah, use this, juice it, whatever.
I occasionally grow wheatgrass. I mean, I suppose if I didn't have my front yard garden, I would grow more wheatgrass, because even in an apartment you can grow wheatgrass. And then the main thing about growing your own food is the better flavor, plus it's fresh. You're harvesting the wheatgrass and then juicing it right then and there. And that, in my opinion, is very important. So, in the wheatgrass, one of the reasons why they say wheatgrass is so beneficial is because of the chlorophyll. But all the dark leafy greens have chlorophyll as well. So, and also, how is that? As you can see, it was very super simple, and it just takes hopefully good quality ingredients and, you know, mixing them together correctly.
It's really yummy.
It's spicy but good.
A little bit spicy. Yeah, I was thinking it might be a little bit spicy.
It's like a monkey.
John.
Yes. Oh, then just leave it on the corner there for me then.
Oh, it's yummy.
Isn't it?
There's more.
You gotta find a new food.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so once again, I want to encourage you guys to use the minimal amount of ingredients that you can. And still, I mean, things can still taste good. It's like too many cooks spoil the soup or something. Too many ingredients spoil the soup is what John says.
What do you do with your veggie pulp? You don't really seem like a cracker.
All right.
Toast.
The veggie pulp actually that I get, like this veggie pulp, if I was at home, this would get mixed into the dog food. So I oftentimes have foster dogs, and unfortunately they won't eat straight veggie pulp for some reason. If I had chickens, I would feed it to my chickens. I do have ducks, or my ducks actually don't like to
I make crackers with
eat the veggie pulp. Yeah, I mean if you're amoeba, you'd make the crackers. Sometimes my housemate makes some crackers with the pulp, and generally it goes to my compost pile or the worms is the best use that I have of it personally. Actually, the other thing you could do is like some of this you could actually use in your soup as the texture. So now we have basically a carrot and cucumber juice as our base for this soup. And we're going to pour that in to the blender.
Have you ever just get lazy and just blend the cucumber for the watery base?
Yeah, that's another way you could do it. So you could make a juice, you could blend it, but then see your base is then a lot more thick. So if you like a more thick, full-bodied soup, you could absolutely do that. Now I wouldn't necessarily do that with carrots because carrots not going to be quite as watery as a cucumber. But you could easily do that with the bell peppers. Actually, that's a good base. Or, I mean, tomatoes you could blend up. I'd probably juice them instead of, I'd probably blend those instead of juice them. But sometimes I'll juice them because I just want that different texture. And one of the other things in raw food that's very important to me, if you noticed, is the food textures and changing the food textures, even of the same food item. Like if we took the celery, maybe I'll juice some celery, I'll put that in there for the salty flavor. If we took the celery and just like juiced it, that's one texture for us. But if we chop it in a small fine thread, that'll give you a nice crunchy texture. Because many people miss the crunch. And Amoeba would want you to make some crunchy crackers, but I would want you to eat some crunchy vegetables, like cucumbers or jicama, you know, or yacon, or drew some artichokes chopped up. So now we have some celery in here. So this once again is just some carrot, cucumber, celery juice as our base. Once again, that is all the liquid we need. So let's see, we used the miso already with our flavoring agent. We want to use our tomatoes.
What kind of soup is this going to be?
Let's see. I don't know yet. Actually, that'll be a nice flavor agent. And the tomatoes will actually act as a thickener too. So another hint I want to give you guys is if you guys want to make something thicker without adding extra fat like the nuts, use dried vegetables like the tomatoes, the dried peppers, or even dried zucchini. Will add a thickener because it'll absorb the water and without adding extra fat if you are concerned about eating too much fat. Let's see what else.
Do you store most of your dehydrated stuff in glass jars?
Absolutely. So I store them in mason jars that are sealed. Optimally, I would store them in mason jars with the air sucked out. That's even better.
How do you
So-
suck the air out?
Oh, yeah, food saver. Vacuum appliance. They have mason jar attachments that go onto the top with a little thing, and it sucks the air out, and then it seals the cap down. And then you put the screw thing
I
on.
want those.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll have a video on that one of these days. I don't have one
Does
currently.
your coconut ever go rancid, the dried coconut?
Yes, absolutely.
What's the shelf life?
3 to 6 months. I'm sure you'll finish it before then.
And is that keeping it cold or is that letting it sit out?
That's just on the counter.
Okay.
Probably if you kept it cold in the freezer, but I don't. One of my things is I don't like to freeze or fridge things unless absolutely necessary. I have so much coconut that I don't really need to do that, and I try to use it fast enough so that it doesn't. But I mean, like, we buy produce, and once you cut produce and put it in the fridge, I mean, it's just the nutrients are going down. So in an optimal world, an ideal world, I just like to have a big, huge garden with everything I need, and when I'm hungry, guess what? I don't go to the fridge to see what's inside it. I go outside and see what's growing and what's ripe, and oftentimes I'll go in my front yard and just start picking leaves, cilantro and lettuce, and I was eating cucumbers out of my garden, tomatoes the other day, peppers, and just walk around and just graze. And if I have a fruit orchard, I just go in the fruit orchard and
Nice.
pig out until I was full.
Do you ever go to the grocery store?
Do I ever go to the grocery store? Absolutely. You know, I'm not at the place yet where I need to. I rarely buy any vegetables because I grow most of myself. Some things I choose to buy, like, you know, I buy celery because it's a lot easier to buy the celery than to grow it, I've learned. And, you know, I'd rather grow kale that I can grow really well than hassle with celery and it doesn't do so well.
Right.
Because it's not growing like it should in big bunches.
Right.
One day I'll master that and I won't have to, but until then, you know, yes, so I absolutely I buy usually 90 to 95% of what I buy is organic. So it's actually mostly all organic. There's some, like sometimes I'll buy non-organic avocados if they're ripe, their organic ones are, and the price difference is huge.
Crazy.
Or, you know, some tropical fruits, I'll rarely buy are non-organic papaya or pineapple and mangoes. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of things that I'll buy things that are pesticide-free or hothouse grown, which isn't organic. But, you know, from my research, I feel they're safer and less expensive than organic if organic's not available or too expensive, especially in the wintertime. Hothouse tomatoes from like Costco are like the best tomatoes. And then I blend those up even with these to make sauces, and then I get the full flavor from here plus the tomatoes that are the best I can find at the time. And it's always about whatever your situation, doing the best you can, getting the highest quality food you can, whether you're in an apartment or live on a farm, and hopefully grow your own stuff. So let's blend this up really quick. We got just a few minutes, and then I guess we're gonna have lunch. So does anybody have a preference on the fat source we use? We have the choice of hemp seeds, sunflower seeds, cashews, or walnuts.
These walnuts.
Walnuts, yeah, the walnuts are the freshest, and they're probably the bestest. So once again, I'm gonna do like 1 handful of nuts, and we'll probably use like another half a handful. Again, don't want to put too much fat. And the walnuts always have that walnutty kind of like bite flavor, so expect that when you eat this. If I wanted it more creamy without that bite, the cashews would have been good. The hemp seeds, they have a little flavor too, but it just all depends what you're in the mood for, and I'm glad we use the walnuts because they're the freshest. All right, so this is our soup base now. Once again, it's just juiced carrots, cucumber, and some celery, and the walnuts and the tomatoes, so that's a nice, really thin consistency. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in some texture. So let's see, what are we going to use for texture today? Well, we've had these things over here soaking. So once they're done soaking for a little bit, you can see, you know, once again, this whole thing expanded, it's all full. We're just going to pour it through a sieve. And these are like nice, big, chunky pieces, and they're actually nice and soft. So that's why I like them. These are the cut pieces of wakame. You can also get wakame that comes in longer pieces, so they're even longer if you like that style. So once they come out, I like to wring some of the excess water off because I don't want to actually dilute my soup with the excess water. You can see I'm just squeezing this off. And it's water's still coming out. So just try to squeeze as much as you can out of there. So probably like wakame and dulse are two of my favorite seaweeds. But you know, you can try the other ones. And seaweeds, in my opinion, are very good for us. They're high in, once again, minerals, because all the minerals that were in the topsoils, guess where they are now? Into the sea, because they were in the topsoils. It rained, the water came, and then it rushed them all in the sea. So now the sea has minerals, and if you're not farming in mineral-rich soils, you want to eat lots of seaweeds for those minerals.
Oh, I wanted to ask, how often are you adding your rock dust to your beds? Is it every year, or?
Sure. So I add rock dust usually every planting season.
Okay.
Is that necessary? I don't know. I figure the more the better. You can't overdo rock dust, unlike some fertilizers. And then I want to make sure my beds are fully mineralized and that the plants have access to the minerals if they need them. So I'll generally put optimally I like to put 1 scoop in every hole as I transplant, and also just throughout the bed, it's just mixed into the blend.
Okay.
Where does the rock dust come from?
The rock dust, there's 2 sources that I get primarily. They could be from like ground up river rocks in your local area. You can get them from a rock quarry, or that's just a standard rock dust, but you can get a horticultural grade rock dust. One comes from BC, from literally glacial rocks, and another source that I get comes from like mines in Utah, from like rocks that are just ground up.
Do you have on your
So I have a video on rock dust, so go to growingyourgreens.com and do a YouTube search for rock dust, and you'll find at least almost a half dozen videos on rock dust where I explain where to get it, the sources, and more information.
Got it all lined up.
Yeah, pretty much got everything going on. And next, when somebody asks me, do you have a raw, how to make raw soups, John? Actually, I already have a video on that, but I'll have another one now with actual examples. So now I'm just stirring in that wakame, and as another texture, of course, we gotta use the corn that Jordan was chopping up for us. That has a really nice, crunchy texture into our soup.
That's gonna be good.
I don't know that we'll use all of it, but really thick.
Bell pepper.
We could chop up some bell pepper as a texture. Let's do that really quick.
Nice color.
Yeah, adds a nice color. Actually, you know what? Why don't we put these in each bowl, then we'll put a thing of bell pepper on the top. And that's one thing I didn't talk about, actually, that is also important, is whenever you make food, especially raw foods, I believe it's very important to make it look pretty. And make it look appetizing. So one of my favorite things to do to make it look appetizing that I was thinking when I was gathering all this food today, one of the things I would have liked was to have some flowers, edible flowers. So I grow many things in my garden, including edible flowers, especially for when I go to potlucks and just my nightly meals, so that I can make it look pretty. Plus those flowers have benefits for us. For example, marigolds, that many people may not know, marigolds are edible, and they're actually rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, which is actually really good for our eyes. And if you go to the health food store, you could buy a supplement of lutein and zeaxanthin made from marigold petals. So why don't we just eat the marigold petals in the first place? And the companies that sell these products would have you believe that most people don't eat the proper diet, so they need the supplement. But hey, why don't you guys eat the proper diet, including marigold petals and other flower petals that have all these rich colors that have all the nutrients in it for us. And so before I get behind, let me go ahead and slice up some of this bell pepper in nice thin slices. That's all the time I have for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that soup. I'll hang out and take a few questions if you have any. Oh, and I want to mention actually before I go, some of the tools that I use today I have available at my booth in limited quantities. If you are interested in them, please see me later. And I also have a little booklet. So I've been into raw food since 1995. Yeah, a long time. I know I don't even look that old. But during that time, you know, some people get into raw foods and they write a book after a year, 6 months, 2 years. But after about, 12 years, I think I wrote this book. So this book has over 30 of my favorite recipes that I like, that are really simple and what I would consider quote unquote clean, meaning, you know, it doesn't contain agave and sea salt and things like that, and things that are really gonna help build your health. My goal is to write a book that will teach the principles, like I taught you guys today, the principles of making a soup. I wanna have one for making a salad and making other raw food entrees, including desserts and things, but in the future I'll have those. But until then, I have some recipes that I'll share with you what I would do, and hopefully you would get this book and see, oh, John makes it like this. Maybe I can substitute, you know, almonds for the macadamia nuts, or maybe I could substitute, you know, cut up celery instead of the zucchini, or, you know, and hopefully you guys will get more creative and think about some of the foods you eat and try to improvise and do things yourself, because that's what I think life is all about, not following the leader, which many of us do today in this day and age, but coming up with what you have to do yourself to be individualistic and independent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're awesome.
Is that good soup?
Yes.
You claim
nice.
that you're not a chef, but you're my favorite chef. So.
Yeah, I really don't think it's too good what's happening in the raw food chef world. I have a video on this also, and it's entitled "Take Control of Your Own Health." And one of my beliefs is that in our society, we leave our health up to the doctors, because when we get sick, we go to the doctors and we expect them to know what to do for us, which I had to do when I was younger, because I almost lost my life, and the doctors they couldn't do anything for me. So I had to take my health back into my own hands. But another person in our society that we really lead and put our health into their hands are chefs, because usually without question, we'll see a recipe here, we'll eat a recipe here, we'll see what they made. They say, oh, it's raw food, and it must be healthy for us, and then we'll eat it without questioning, oh, is the agave good? Is this good? Is the salt really good for me? Is this? And they don't, in my opinion, teach the healthiest way like I would teach you, which is like what I learned when I learned about this in 1995, because there were not all these crazy ingredients that are now available. And So people are learning the wrong information. This is getting spread through organizations, and then these chefs learn it. Then people will, at this event, will learn the recipes. Oh, this is the raw food recipe I learned, and then they'll pass it to their friend, and it keeps going on like that chain when you say something and it ends up different. And we're missing the whole point of, that's why I have this display of all these fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's what we really want to get back to. And if you notice, hopefully my recipes were pretty much made up of all this stuff without all the additives, and you can make stuff as you taste it that tastes good without that. So take your health back in your own hands.
Yay.
So hopefully you've enjoyed that clip, learning more about the techniques of making raw food soup. So hopefully now you're empowered to make a raw food soup tonight with what's in your kitchen or in your garden or even on sale at your local health food store. One of my goals is to empower people and to teach people the techniques and concepts and not teach them just recipes. I want to take my teachings to the next level and teach people how to think and come up with their own recipes instead of just teach you recipes that you must follow. Once again, my name is John Kohler, and I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's www.okraw.com, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel to get all the updates and see my latest teachings. I have well over 100 videos on my YouTube channel at this time, which is full of a wealth of knowledge that I have accumulated over the last 16 years that I have lived a raw foods diet. So we'll see you next time, and keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're the best.